What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? You are on the sidelines with the sideline guys. And today, people, today I am joined by an esteemed co host, a man who deserves no competition, a man who somehow finds a way to troll me, even on my best days, my guy, Sean Negrong. How's it going, brother?
It's going well. It's going well, bro. I'm excited. We Another fight night down. This one was in Brazil. I enjoyed it. Now we are up to the pay per view here in our home state, Madison Square Garden, New York. Love that. I'm excited, man. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're taking all the news right away from me, right? I don't have any thunder now at this point, but it's okay. Because at least I'm joined by you once again for another recap show. But before we get into all of the amazing things that we need to discuss, Sean, why don't you tell the people where they can find you?
Always find me on Twitter at SeanNegron26 and bsreports.org is my website. You could find me there and eventually Chris one day. And as we get our if you want to get started with your writing career, sports, podcasting, anything, give me a shout and I will do my very best to help you.
Yes, sir. We're on our way. We're on our way. And you could find me at Negrong MMA on Twitter as well as the TikTok. And you could also find me at Chris Negron underscore on Instagram. And whoever is texting me, please stop. I hope you guys can't hear it at home. But we're live, baby. And the next thing you know, it's time to get into the recap from Jailton Almeida versus Derrick Lewis, Fight Night Sao Paulo, Brazil. Our first fight of the night, Caio Fernandez drops a fucking stinker to Mark Diakase. Sean, how could we be so wrong?
Well, it was as disappointing as it gets to start off a card for I guess both of us, right? I thought going into this that you took Mark, and I was actually really disappointed with how it started. But then I found out that you also took Fernandez because I don't know why I thought differently. I wasn't as bummed, but still, Fernandez absolutely stunk it up, and that first round was very clearly for Mark. And then I know some people debate that Fernandez kind of came back in rounds two and three, but I was surprised it was even split. To be honest with you, I could have seen this going 29-28 all throughout, but I think it makes Fernandez look a little better that it was split because I didn't think it was split at all.
Hmm. Yeah, shout out to Nova Unyao. Not the best first showing, but I think there's a lot to learn, especially when it comes to good old Brazilians just working off their back and not trying to get up. Right, the old archetype in MMA that I hope gets conquered someday. But yeah, not much really to say on that one. Obviously disappointed. Kind of for my analysis moving forward, I'm definitely going to be focused on not being hyper focused on a certain phase of the fight because I thought I got super sucked in. Pause on the angle of the clinch breaks, right? And there was not a clinch break in sight in this fight, right? He was all over those legs, and before we knew it, it became a lay and pray fest. But moving on, Eduardo Moura gets the TKO victory over Montserrat Conejo Ruiz. You've got a superstar on your roster, man. 0 and 2 for the team. How does it feel?
I hate it. I hate it so much. And it bothers me because going into the card where I picked Montserrat, I sat here and thought, you know what? There's some upside there. I know she's coming off of a loss, but I think she was 10-1 at the time. All right, don't worry. I think it was the Mexican Independence card, if I remember correctly. But it was I believed in the hype, and man, has that backfired immediately. You get when you do these dynasty things, you sit there and you say, all right, I can grab a couple wins now with this fighter, and then eventually, obviously, everyone's career tails off and it ends abruptly in a bad way. But Montserrat has come to let me know that I made a horrible choice, and she wants to tell me every time she fights that I'm going to hurt you. I'm gonna continue to hurt your stats, and your win loss record. So I appreciate Montserrat for being real with me and just constantly taking the L. Thank you for 3 in a row, and I look forward to 4 in a row next time you fight. Thanks so much.
I was about to say, yeah, what happens if someone gets cut? We haven't discussed this, right? I don't think this has happened yet. I don't think I mean, as of now, she has not been, but I'm pretty sure she's on her way. We're not like keeping this outside of UFC, right? Like this is a UFC
No,
thing.
yeah, this is a
Okay.
UFC thing. That's the thing too. I guess when if people start getting cut, because it's gonna happen. Like I expect you by 296 to be taking Tony Ferguson, and so when
Oh,
you
there's no way. I don't hate myself that much.
come on, the fact you're not taking your favorite fighter, that's ridiculous. Um, if he does get cut or anyone does get cut, I think it kind of just goes by the wayside with how our
Mhm.
system is set up. I think that's just the best way to do it. I don't think it makes much sense to have, Conejo probably in the PFL or something dominating there, get wins off that. It doesn't
Yeah.
really work.
Okay. So I guess we'll write it off like towards the bottom or something like this person no longer in the UFC. That
Well,
should
it
be
could be one of
interesting.
those situations where they leave and then all of a sudden they come back a couple years later, and I get,
Mhm.
we're doing this for a couple years. Montserrat might make her way back, and
Ooh, that's a sneaky
maybe
wrinkle I never even thought of. Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
that's what I'm hoping
We'll
for.
keep that in mind. We'll keep that in mind. Eduardo Mora looked good as ever, though. That was a great pickup by you. So yeah, the sadness comes, but then it leaves, right? Because you got something to look forward to. How you feeling about that pick in Eduardo Mora's UFC run?
Not bad. I do like it. Well, one because I think I like it more because of the fact it was hard when you have Montserrat already on Dynasty. You kind of have to find someone where Eduarda has such a great future ahead of her, and it hurts knowing that you have two Dynasty people going against each other. And obviously, when that happens for us, we do that like probably on the same card. I don't think we've ever had a situation where we're picking one Dynasty player to go against another Dynasty of ours by accident on two different cards.
Hmm.
So I do like Eduarda's future, and I think it's only going to continue to grow. I do think though that she has some novice in her game there. I do think she's still a little fresh, and it was pretty telling how far back Montserrat is. But I do think Eduarda is on her way, and a couple more fights, and I think she'll be legit.
Hey, I like it. I agree. I think she isn't as athletically gifted as her stablemate in Jailton Almeida. But for the division, I think her style is going to definitely bring some problems. So we've got that to look forward to at the very least. Next up, Angela Hill, Denise Gomes. I could pop my collar every now and then, right? I just felt it. There was something in the air in this one. And honestly, Denise Gomes looks like a goddamn beast still, right? Coming out of this fight, I thought she was game the entire time and dangerous, right? Threatening constantly with some really good shots, um, and looked the part of UFC MMA fighter, right? Completely evolved with the new blonde short haircut. Looked like a new woman out there. But unfortunately, Angela Hill came away with the unanimous decision. Obviously, felt good to get that pick right, but also was a sweaty one, right? That was one that you don't know you got wrapped up until the fight is completely finished. A lot of dicey moments there, but felt good to get one right on a night that I actually did fucking horrendously.
Hey, I'll take it because I'm trying to get myself back in the win column here, and even though for me I did not win this pick because this was painful, just because of the fact that I can't believe Angela Hill. I said this going into the preview show. I just did not think Angela Hill could keep up with Denise. And man, was I wrong on that one. I ate my words. I felt like from 90 seconds in, I knew how this fight was about to go, and that sucks because I really like what Denise Gomez is about, and now it makes me question everything with her. I'm glad I didn't take her in Dynasty. I don't think I necessarily had that in mind, but now I feel like I have so much more to see now with Denise, and Angela Hill's kind of the veteran, the journey woman, if that's a word, in this game, and like she's kind of been climbing at this 500 streak for her entire career. And I knew she was a veteran; she's been here a long time, but I thought Denise would come in and be a step ahead or a level ahead, and that did not happen. So I was very underwhelmed with how Gomez performed.
I don't think it was too bad, to be honest. I thought she showed up and did what she does. God damn it, just wasn't enough on the night. Definitely needs to round out her game a little bit more, especially when you're facing veterans like that. To be able to get out of those clinch positions early, and then force your opponent back and really change their mind right about engaging in that kind of scenario over and over again. Because it felt like the same kind of crashing in the clinch war the entirety of the night. And the longer she could stay at distance, the better she did. But yeah, not too much more to say about that. Next up, you get to do your victory dance, your victory lap. Because this is a great pick, man. Victor Petrino or Vitor. Should we just go full TRT tour, right? Is this the new coming of Vitor in the flesh? Gets a nasty hook knockout against Modestus Bukowskis. Sean, I might have been wrong about this guy, but I'm gonna be real here. I'm gonna be real here. This division fucking sucks.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. But that I'm a big believer in Petrino. I remember, of course, now I say I remember, but I can't remember. Um, his last one, I think it was 290, and UFC 290, and I was a big fan of him there, where I saw that he can knock you out, but also he can bring you down to the submission game. Obviously, Brazil is very well known of doing that. But I just I believe in him. I think he's still very clean of a fighter, fresh. It's hard. I'm trying to think of the best word to think of him. Like, I think he still has a lot of fights that he needs to prove it to me that he could be one of the top contenders in this division, in this not so great division. But I felt that Bukaskis, if I can say that correctly,
Young
um,
Bukaki.
was not yeah, was not at his level, and I thought, Petrino has a little bit of hype around him, and it was perfect that he was in Brazil. It's like I said in the preview show, and that's exactly what I predicted. I thought this was gonna be a knockout, and, man, I love those little leading check hooks, and, it was beautiful. Loved it, and it went exactly as I thought it would, and, I hope to see him again soon.
Couldn't disagree with you more. This is one of my favorite moments in MMA where the punch goes bonk, right? There ain't shit you could do. When the punch goes bonk, baby, it's over. The fight's over. Honestly, I thought Bukowskis gave him some trouble at range.
Yeah.
And that's of course something to look out for moving forward in his career. Interesting that none of us picked him for dynasty, considering how high you are on him. But
He'll be there
I'm gonna be
eventually.
I'm gonna be looking to fade him. I'm gonna be looking to fade him for sure. But great knockout. Can't hate too much. Feels bad for my guy, but we move on to a really fucking awesome fight. Eliseu Zaleski dos Santos versus Renat Fakhradinov goes to a split draw, baby. If I remember correctly, only one judge scored it for Renat, and the other two scored the fight a draw. We can start there, Sean. How did you score this one?
To be honest with you, I thought Renat had done enough. And but man, I this was a lot closer than I thought it ever would be. Um, I thought that this was going to be more of Renat's fight, and I thought he had more than enough to take it. And then at the end of it, I thought, and I wasn't mad. I wasn't mad that it was a draw, but I still thought, like, I thought Renat had done just enough to squeak by a split decision. I remember saying, "All right, I think split," but seeing that it was a draw, I'm still not mad at it. It's one of those where there's still, so you know, young fighters in this game, I guess, that I doubt they'll ever fight each other again, but I would love to see that fight again.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. Down the line, that would be awesome. Man, that body kick was ruthless, dude. Ruthless.
Oh
The
yeah.
placement on that was just absolutely filthy, right to the liver. Shout out to Renat for being able to survive that. I don't know how the hell he survived that, and I actually didn't mind the decision at all. I thought it was very clear Renat won round one and two. But
Yep.
if anyone deserved the 10-8, in my opinion, it was Zaleski. I thought even though Renat got the knockdown in round one, he wasn't able to sustain that level of danger as long as EDS did. Because man, it really, I thought he was gonna get stopped. Man, those last couple of seconds of that round felt like it could have been over at any second. So, um, hell of a comeback, right? Great job sticking in it. And I remember there was this guy on the show. I'm not sure who his name was, but he said it was gonna be close, and he said it was gonna go to decision. So. Maybe I should start following a little bit more, right? A little bit more what this guy says because it seems to be on point.
I think he's, you win some, you lose some. He got one there, and I'll give it to him.
Next up, we've got sadness to talk about. Okay, we've got so many fights that we've missed out on this week. The first being Victor Hugo Daniel Marcos, RIP. Hopefully that one gets booked again in the future. This guy got cold feet when that fight fell out. Tried to talk me into can't vetoing the trade. This
Oh,
man
okay.
started feeling some
This
type of
guy's bringing up
way.
behind the scenes stuff. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, I have to. It's only right. Try to try
All
to
right.
try to call the council in to veto the trade
And the
because
council
someone missed weight. I'm like, hey,
council
man,
followed me. All right. Council believed in what I was saying. All
they
right.
believed.
And it goes beyond that. It was the Marcos and then Ismail Bonfim. We made that trade to split those two guys. Obviously, there were two other fighters involved, but we made that trade for these two fighters, and that they both aren't fighting. Makes no sense to continue that trade. It's like when you trade someone and they failed their physical, the trade gets void.
Not the
So I was like,
same. Not
it
the
is the same
same.
because they both failed their physical, quote unquote.
But
And
this is dynasty. This isn't just one fight, right? This is
sure, but you never make that. Like I would keep it in Dynasty, but it was the fact that we traded them for each other. The trade would never happen. That's what I was saying. Obviously, we keep them in Dynasty, and maybe we could trade them at a future date. But the point was that they're fighting on the same card. It makes no sense. It's if you trade them for each other, and they both don't pass their physical, they go back to where they start. That's what I
no.
was trying to
That
say.
makes no sense.
Yes,
There's
that
no
it makes
vetoes.
it makes total sense. That's how the world works. That's
No.
how that would work every time. You
Impossible. There has
if you buy
been
a product
weight
and it comes
misses.
back, you're gonna return it to get your money back. That's how that works.
Yes, but if we would have returned it and we would have kept our base fighters, that was just an excuse for me to be the guy that misses out on two fights because Armin Petrosian also fell ill, which I'm sure we'll get to
That's on
shortly.
you though.
So to me, hey, is it because you're the one that traded for those guys? So who
All
is
right,
it really on
I
here?
did Marcos for Bonfim, and so it was a 1 for 1 there. All right,
And then what
it
happened? Please
was
explain to me what happened. Because to me,
they
I think I
both
fleeced you.
they
I think
both
I think I
got
came
slash
out.
injured, miss weight, and
I
we could have
saw.
just taken that back. Just returned where we needed to return, and it would have been all good. You could have had Petrosian back. I would have even thrown that in
Hey,
there for you.
when this guy sees value, he finds a way, right, to make it work. And then you started getting cold feet, but it's okay. We're back where we began. Next up, unfortunately, we missed out on that fight, but we did get a fight between Elvis Brenner and Kanan Krusheski. Elvis Brenner gets a huge knockout. Nasty, right? Face planted him in, was it round one, right? Yeah, it was the end of round one, if I remember correctly. A hell of a win
Yes, yes.
for Elvis Brenner and that shoot the box team. How did nobody pick this guy? Can we figure that out?
Oh, for Dynasty.
Yeah.
Well, it was one of those situations where Kanan came in on short notice, and I think that kind of threw us both off. The fact that we were kind of thrown off of what this fight could have been, and you never know when you have, especially it was two Brazilians fighting each other, if I remember correctly,
Mhm.
and when that stuff happens, when you get short notice fights, most of the time, yes, like the guy who's still on the card will most likely dominate. But when you get the short notice fight, anything can happen, and it's hard to take someone for dynasty, and then all of a sudden Kane comes in and does what Brennan did to him, but vice versa, and then you're like, oh, how the heck did that happen? But yeah, now I have Brenner on the radar, and I'll be making sure to take that from you next time he's on a fight card.
Great shout. Brenner has been on my radar since he sparked out Kutataladze. Huge upset there, and obviously just a great performance. Funny enough, it was kind of dicey early on. Like before he landed that shot, it was a competitive fight. Kanan was coming forward right early and often, and making him work out there. But I thought it was pretty clear just based on how they looked, who was ready, right, for this opportunity, and that guy got a huge faceplant knockout. So congrats to Elvis Brenner. Good luck to both of these guys moving forward. I think Kanan can actually be a problem to do this huge for the division. So something to keep an eye out on. Next up, Ismael Bonfim Vinch, Mr. Pichel from Hell. Unfortunately, we lose out on this fight as well because Bonfim lost weight. We already spoke about it a little bit, but I do feel, not gonna lie, for Vince Pichel, the man is a janitor, right? He shows up ready to rock, and now he just has to go back to cleaning piss and fucking vomit without getting his rocks off, man. I feel bad for the guy. I wonder what the deal was on that. I don't know if it was a medical thing that the doctor sort of stopped him from cutting or whatever the case may be, but sucks to have not one, not two, but three motherfucking missed fights on the night.
I do hope that they gave Bichelle some sort of money, and at least like to show up or something. I hope the UFC took care of him, because that's one of those situations. It's like Wonder Boy, like where Wonder Boy
Mhm.
complained about it and he kind of went public with it. And, he said that he ended up getting what he deserved. Just took a bit. I hope it's one of those situations where uh, Pichel gets what he deserves, or at least a cut, something, to make up, not just for the flight and obviously the training camp. I think the UFC already would cover that for him, but he deserves to get a little something for being able to want to show up, and it's not his fault that Bonfim, comes in 3.5 pounds over. That's kind of bullshit, and
Mhm.
I hope he gets some money for that.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Next up, another sadness stricken moment. Adolfo Vieira versus Armin Petrosian gets scrapped on the night. These other two were scrapped ahead of time, right? This one happened on the night. And you know what pissed me off? You know what really burned my soul, brother? Not only did we lose out on this fight, but they fucking kept the 30 minutes of airtime on the TV, and now we're forced to rewatch fights we've already watched and watch them hype up the main event that is coming shortly for 30 fucking minutes instead of moving on with the fight night card. Like that is so disrespectful. And if it wasn't clear already, that they don't give a fuck about the fan experience, and it's all about these advertisement blocks, baby. It's clear now. Am I tripping, Sean?
A little bit, because it's about TV contracts, and filling up what you promised, ESPN or ESPN Plus, and you promised that time slot. You got to fill up the time slot, and so you got to do whatever it takes to get your fighters, or get that fight event to follow that timeline. And so, if you move on to the next fight, you kind of have an empty cage sitting there, but thinking that the last fight would happen on the prelim at 9:30. What are you going to do? Sit there and hype up the main card for 30 minutes and kind of just waste the time away? So it's one of those things where obviously it wouldn't have happened if this fight didn't get canceled the day of, but because it did, I think UFC kind of scrambled. And I think if this was more of a hellscape 5 million, this they would have made up more with some sort of nonsense to keep up with the times. But because it was in Brazil, it's a packed arena. You kind of have to figure out where you're gonna waste time. Rather waste it in the prelim, or waste it in the early prelim, and that's what they ended up doing. So I get it. I don't like it, but I do understand. The TV contracts that come into play here, and you have to fulfill your duty. It's beyond the fight. It's beyond the fans at this point. You got to make sure ESPN's happy.
Hey,
You got to
their
make sure
duty
all that's happy.
stinks. their duty stinks.
No
All
doubt.
right,
All
let's
duty
be
stinks,
real
brother.
here. Let's be real here. No matter what, when the show wraps, they're still on air, right?
Yes.
So why not just do the damn thing? You're already not showing us walkouts, which is the most criminal thing, if you ask me. Like
Yes.
I'm paying with my hard-earned money for this ESPN channel to watch these fights, and you can't let me watch the walkouts, bro. Not even once. I gotta watch the same Burger King commercial 14 times in a fucking row, and then you're gonna force me again into that cycle because someone decided that he couldn't participate. Just sucks. This is a shitty situation all
I
around.
get it.
I see your point as well. But in my opinion, there's no excuse for it. You're gonna be on air anyway. Like the show's gonna end, and you're still gonna have airtime. You can cut to shout out to KB, cut to Karen Bryant in the back. I'm sure she'll have something to talk about with those guys. So sucks in my opinion that they decide to do this. But hey, still better than watching a performance in the middle of Saudi Arabia right before a match. Next up, Kayo Bohayo versus Abus Magomedov. I think we were pretty on point on this one, but I do have to admit, um, Abus was fighting that gas hard, bro, hard. Because the same exact
What do you
thing
mean by that?
happened. Yeah, you know exactly what I mean by that, brother. He was fighting demons, and clearly he wanted to give up, but he didn't. He made it to the distance. Overall, I thought it was a great performance by Kaio Bahayo and another shining moment on your dynasty team.
Well, that's because I will never ever believe in Abus ever. He came in with all that hype, and then the Sean Strickland fight really pissed me off because I didn't expect Abus to win that fight, but I expected more of a performance there. You know, they were hyping this guy up so much, this unranked hype, and going against Strickland. And it's pretty rare for a guy from unranked to fight like I think what was Sean at the time, 5 or 6. Like it's like you don't get that, and then you get a guy like Abus who gassed out after 3.5 minutes. So same thing, I thought he fought hard. I think he even won a round in my scorecard if I remember correctly. But it, I think Abus is all hype, and it just continues to prove that.
Hmm.
He's a good fighter, but he's not good enough. And I do think that I do think Baralho is better than him, but I do think Abus can stick around right here. I do think Abus will win his next fight if they follow the trend that I'm used to with how they
Hmm.
do UFC fights. But I think that's his level right here is unranked hype.
Yeah, I think he'll probably knock some people out in the UFC. I don't think they cut him. I think he'll stick around. He's a fun fighter, and his style
No
leads to
doubt.
knockouts, right? I think he
I
will. I think he's good enough. I think we're sleeping on how good Kyle Bahayo and Sean Strickland are.
oh well yeah, they are good, but I just think if you're coming in to be this unsigned hype right from jump, yeah, it's tough because you get kind of when you go to the UFC, no matter what hype you are, you get shown who you really are pretty quickly and the level you are. It's pretty rare when you come to the UFC and dominate, especially like Avis to go into fight, a number 5 in your second fight. It's that's pretty tough. I'm not taking that away from him, but it was the gas tank for me, and I do think Avis could be something if he just gets the gas tank back to at least 15 minutes of fighting, which I talk like I know how easy that is, and it's not. It's nowhere near easy. But to make it in UFC and the last in UFC, that's a minimum, right? Like you have to
Hmm.
have 15 minutes of cardio, of fighting cardio, I should say. And I feel like Abus is around the 5 to 7 minute range.
Yeah, man. He will front kick the fuck out of people like Stoltzfus. So, and trust me, there's a lot of those guys in that division. But next up, one of the worst picks I've ever made on the history of the show, right? And it's not because Dontel Mays didn't have a chance. No, it was because Rodrigo Rodrigo Nascimento'd us again, baby. But I'm gonna be honest here. Tell me if I'm crazy. The dude looked noticeably faster. Might have even lost a little weight. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe this is a new man that we need to consider here. Looked great on the feet, hurt Dontel Mays multiple times throughout the fight en route to a unanimous decision victory. I'm sure you felt great about this one, but nobody really won here, right? We all kind of lost.
Yeah, I did think that we talked about him being one of the more boring. I think that's the word we use. I don't want to say that like it's mean, but he was not one of the most intriguing fighters out there. And we were going into this one kind of. I went with Rodrigo because he kind of does what he did in this card. He did look better. I think this is the best I've seen him. Um, but he kind of continues to do the same thing where it's the you know winning by points and stealing one. I actually had it 30-27. I didn't see a way until I forgot what round he won, but I was pretty surprised that it was 29-28. I think all across, if I remember correctly. But um, yeah, I'll give it to Rodrigo, man, and that's why I chose him. I just felt like he was going to continue to do the same thing, continue to just win each round one by one. And that's all that matters. Because at the end of the day, that is all that matters.
Yep.
Winning 5 minutes every time. You win those 5 minutes, all right. Win the next 5 minutes, and he continues to do that. And you know what? Hats off to him. So good for him.
Yes, sir. Couldn't agree with you more. That was a good performance, but a sad night nonetheless. Next up, our co-main event. I won some
Now this was
shekels,
sad.
baby. I was so happy. I even dropped down and did some motherfucking push-ups, man. That's how pumped I was after the comeback victory from one Nicholas Dalby over Gabriel Bonfim in the co-main event. This is an awesome fight, man. What I love about it too is Gabriel still got to go out there and do his damn thing, right? He still went out there, looked like Gabriel, um, looked good while landing a lot of significant strikes and really putting Nicholas Dalby in some real danger early on. But man, I kept saying it, and I was watching it with a couple people in my house and obviously my family, and I was just like, man, this guy Nicholas Dalby is like a Saiyan. Like you just need to hit him and then he just gets stronger, and that's literally what played out right after that moment. Very prophetic moment for me on the podcast but also in person, just saying don't count him out just yet because this is exactly what turns him on. No pause. And that's exactly what played out. Shout out to Nicholas Dalby getting a huge win. Also, shout out to Gabriel Bonfim, not looking like a bum, but also having a similar problem to Abus Magomedov. How did you feel about this one, Sean, considering that Bonfim is on your dynasty team?
Yeah, that hurt. But I saw it coming. When you get to, I think it was like the fourth minute of the first round, you kind of saw Dalby constantly putting so much pressure on Bonfim that you kind of saw Bonfim kind of. I thought, to me, maybe you think you see it differently, but I felt like the pressure from Dalby kind of gassed Bonfim out and made him so uncomfortable that he didn't really know how to get out of it. And I think he knew, and like just like how I knew, he's better than Dolby. I think he felt okay. I'm better than this guy. I know I'm better, but how do I shake off the pressure? How do I get him away from me?
Hmm.
And I think, trying to figure that out 2 or 3 straight minutes of just constantly backing up side to side on the cage, you start to tire. And it's not like Dolby's just kind of chasing him. He's throwing punches. He's landing. Even the shots that are getting blocked, he's still putting so much pressure that Bonfim can't get set. He doesn't even know what to do with himself. So when you get to round two, Bonfim's trying to put a little more pressure on him to make Dalby retreat a little bit, but Dalby coming right back at him. I think you get to like I forget, like 90 seconds into the second round, and he's completely lost. Like now he's sitting there in the same corner trying to figure out what do I do next. Like, and the movement's not there. Dalby's just laying it on him. Every time he's getting away, it's not enough. And man, I got to give Dolby a lot of credit and to his coaches. Man, they had a perfect game plan, and they kind of exposed Bonfim a little bit. They're gonna have to go back to the drawing board for sure on this one. But I still think Gabriel Bonfim, obviously being a 15-1 now, is still a hell of a fighter and still someone to look at, as a dangerous opponent. But it definitely shows some holes in the game, and it was definitely not a good night for the Bonfim brothers.
Man, I honestly thought in that second round that Bonfim had that Von Flue choke locked up,
Me
man.
too.
It was
Me
so good.
too.
The transition, the way he caught the arm and forced him to stay in that position,
Yes.
it looked so good. But
I thought he
obviously
was going to
things
escape. To be honest, I not Dolby escape. I thought he was going to escape like this fight because I think internally he was feeling how I was feeling, where like I think Dolby's got the lead on this one. Like obviously Bonfim was winning the first round, but I thought he knew the same thing that I kind of knew that Dolby, if Dolby continues to fight, if Dolby continues to stand up, this is going to be Dolby's fight. Dolby's going to win this, and I think,
mm,
man, it was so close. And then I think when, when Dolby finally got up, it was like, uh oh.
we got problems.
Then that's what you knew. Yeah.
And there was that moment in the third too where you see Bonfim with like 3 minutes left in the round on the cage, look up at the clock,
Yes.
praying that there was
Yes.
only 30 seconds left. And it's like, nah, bro, we got another 3 minutes of this. And once he started
Yes.
throwing those uppercuts with his back to the fence, I knew he was in all sorts of trouble, right? Because I was just in desperation mode at that point to try to keep himself in it. Beautiful performance, veteran grit by my guy Nicholas Dalby. This is his second run here in the UFC. People forget he is a 39-year-old man, right? But doing the damn thing, which you love to see. Shout out to Nicholas Dalby. Once again, I knew those odds looked sketchy and I profited off of it. But fuck, man, I should have picked him for the show. I wouldn't have had such a terrible night. But moving on to our main event, Jailton Almeida gets the unanimous decision victory over Derrick Lewis. I'll let you take the reins here, brother. How did you feel
Thank you.
about this performance by young Maliaginho?
All right. See, here's the thing. I understand why people are gonna hate this performance, and everyone was talking a lot of shit about this one. But you know what? Like, I give Almeida a lot of credit. I feel like he definitely could have put a lot more pressure and could have fought a little harder. I do understand why the ref was saying a bunch of stuff about, you're just holding position, you got to keep it moving. I get that, but at the same time, like, you gotta go at it as if you're fighting Derek Lewis yourself. Derek Lewis is known that if he can stand himself up or even create that space where he could flip you onto your back, it's a really tough time. And I think Almeida knew how easy it was to take him down. You saw that Derek Lewis did not have the greatest ground game. How the fact that we joked about it, how he just talks about, oh, I'll just stand straight up. I don't get it. I don't understand how people just don't stand right up.
Mhm.
And I think you figured out why you don't stand straight up with someone like Almeida. And yeah, I think if you look at it as a boxing fan who, they call themselves MMA fans, but they really just want to see a bunch of knockouts and submissions. I understand how you can see this fight and it's like, oh, this fight sucked. But I like this fight, man. I saw a complete outshining performance by Almeida to just show how dominant he was. Even when Lewis slipped his way out of it and kind of had Almeida on his back for like 30 seconds. And I think it was the third round or fourth round, maybe. How quickly Almeida was able to flip it and put Derek Lewis back on his back. And yeah, it was slow, but that's also Lewis trying to save his energy and he's trying to figure out a way to get himself to stand back up. And he's doing whatever he can to just get to the end of the round so that he can have 30 seconds to himself to start every round standing up before Almeida takes him down. And that's I get it. Derek Lewis is taking this on short notice, and that's always tough. But you got to know that this is Almeida's game plan. You're both polar opposite of fighters, and this showed. Almeida is clearly steps ahead of Derek Lewis at this point in Derek Lewis's career. I love Derek Lewis, but it shows that it would have probably been the same night if Derek Lewis didn't get that crazy knockout against Curtis Blades. It would have been the same thing. And I think that's what Almeida was looking at that game film and that fight film, whatever was. Blades was winning that fight, and all of a sudden Derek Lewis catches him with that uppercut, and we're talking about a completely different story here. So you know, uh, I understand why Almeida did what he did, but I like it, and I know a lot of people don't. So whatever.
I got some hot takes on this one. So I
Let's
get
go. Let's
I
let's
get
hear
your
you.
point. I agree with you. I think overall you can't be mad at an MMA performance like that, right? This is MMA. We're watching MMA. What bothered me about this is this was a wrestling performance. This was not an MMA performance. This was a I'm going to double leg you and I'm going to hold you in mounts until someone decides to separate us, and they're not gonna because I'm in mount, right? So why would they? I love the plan, right? The plan in theory doesn't suck. But if this was non short notice Derrick Lewis, I think he would have had a little bit more success in returning to the feet and preventing the takedown. I thought there were a lot of times where he engaged in the clinch in inadvisable ways, right? Where a more dialed in Derrick Lewis would be treating that as lava, right? Treating that phase as I need to get the fuck out of here as fast as I can so that I can get back to doing what I need to do. Instead, he did that a couple times and then found himself back on his back for it. Now, I give a lot of credit to Jelton. I think it's very hard to be able to consistently take down fighters in any division, but in heavyweight specifically, double legs, single legs, right? Single legs from bottom. Like that's a very hard thing to do. Shout out to Damian Maya. Innovated the game in MMA, if you ask me, when it comes to inversions and singles from beneath opponents. But Jelton looked really good. I agree. Where he didn't look good was finishing instincts, right? In my opinion, especially with someone like Derrick Lewis, why even give him a shot, right? Why even give him a shot? There was times there where Charlton did get stuffed on the takedown, and he's just getting his fucking forehead banged up by big shots. And I know those moments got dicey, right? I know he was worried about being knocked out in those moments. So overall, I think I still am very high on Jelton as a prospect. Drafted him with Dynasty. I feel great about it. But I would love to see his ground and pound really become a focus of his game. Because if he adds that level of danger to his already stellar top control, um, that's real problems right there, right? In my opinion, someone as big as him, as athletic as him, shouldn't really have issues knocking people out. And to me, it seems like position was definitely considered over anything else here, which against the opponent makes sense. I see your point, but at the same time, you would love to see those skills shine through when clearly you already showed you're at such an advantage. But that ends
I
our
hear you.
night. I think it's only important that we ask the question: what is next for Derrick Lewis in this heavyweight division? Now,
Mm.
I think it's important to mention this was on short notice. He was just freed from jail. We've talked about this extensively. Um, I would love to see him back on a full camp, and I'm interested to see how they match him up moving forward. But in my opinion, he's an action guy. Throw him out there with any top 10 heavyweight, and it's going to be fun, right? Keep him away for the wrestlers for a little bit.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't. Well, I think whatever happens legally with him, that's going to set his timeline.
Mhm,
Um, but yeah, I do wonder now. At 38, 39 years old, how much more is really left in for him. I think his title contending days are behind him, and I think you can obviously make some fun fights. And I know he just signed going into this fight. He just signed a big, um, or he just re-signed with UFC. I don't know how many fights, but he signed back. He's a fan favorite. He's probably getting paid pretty well, so I think he'll stick around to fill out that contract and whatever how many fights that is, and then he'll retire. So I do think this is more of a. I don't really know what you want to do with him now. I think you could probably go maybe with a top 15 guy to keep him in the ranked, but I think for him you got to continue to give him up and comers. I really don't see. I think the UFC is going to want to give him someone he can bang with and someone he can just constantly just throw in there and just someone's going to lose in the first round, someone's going to get knocked out. But at the same time, UFC is evolving in the heavyweight division more and more, and I think we're getting to the point where it happens with a lot of people's careers where, when Derek Lewis came into the UFC heavyweight division, most of the guys were just heavy hands, gonna beat the crap out of you. Someone's getting knocked out within 2 minutes. And then, you get to later on in the career now where he's at, and there's a lot more guys that could do both, that could do the submission game,
mhm,
to do the ground game, the jujitsu, the wrestling, and obviously we're seeing an Almeida who does more of the jujitsu wrestling, standpoint. But it's you're getting less and less guys who are just going in there to kill you with one punch and whatever. But I hope that's what's next for Derrick Lewis. But I have a feeling he's going to face some up and coming grappler, and it's gonna be another rough one.
Hmm. Yeah, won't be surprised if that's what we end up with. But all things considered, Sean, how do you feel about Jailton Almeida's? Funny, right? You're fighting the jail man, fresh off of coming out of jail. Um, how do you feel about Jailton's future in this heavyweight division? Is he someone that should be considered amongst the top three, or is he just on the outside looking in?
This is tough because I don't. I look at him, and I saw people talking about this as well. Um, I don't really consider Almeida a top three contender yet. I feel like if he would have beaten Curtis Blades, I would have thought that. But I think Curtis Blades matches him well, and that could have been a real show where I think Curtis Blades could have found his way to win that one. And I just don't see a way where I think Almeida's still a little young in this fighting Derrick Lewis past his prime, and a guy who's so clearly a one dimensional type fighter. And you could argue Almeida's kind of one dimensional in a way, but
Mhm.
Derek Lewis is clearly on the outskirts of his career, who's been around. You've seen plenty of film on him, and that's why Almeida did what he did. He kept distance so short that Derek Lewis could never really fire off, and he almost did. But I think Almeida is really like a top five. I would like to see I would like to see him fight Blades again. I know he wants to fight Cyril Gahn. I don't really. I think that's a good fight because Cyril Gahn, we know his history of how he does against wrestling and jujitsu and stuff like that, and that would be an interesting fight. But even if Almeida won that fight against Gahn, I still wouldn't have the confidence, against someone like Aspinall or Sergey Pavlovich, or if John Jones continues to remain, around longer than he should. Um, yeah, I don't think Steve Bates lasting, so I don't want to consider him. But
Damn.
It's 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 I think well, I think he's got one fight left, and Stipe is gonna fight John Jones and retire. Maybe John Jones fights one more time. I don't think so. Um, I just don't think Almeida is at the Aspinall Sergey level yet, and I think he needs a Curtis Blades type fight to beating Curtis Blades in a 5 round main event would convince me. Okay, like I think he can be a problem for Sergey, and he can
Hmm.
even be a problem for Tom. So I'll wait to see that. But until then, I think he's a top five guy.
Great shouts all around. I'm not gonna lie, I'm stunned. The UFC heavyweight division is back, baby. There's so many names, right? And these are a lot of younger guys, people that I assume should have many more years in the UFC. The heavyweight resurgence is here, man. This is a new look heavyweight division, and I'm really excited about it, man. We just went fucking eight deep on names and didn't even mention guys like Taito Ivasa and a lot of the other younger but exciting heavyweights. So there's a lot to look forward to here at heavyweight, but I think at any other time period he would easily be top three, right? I think it's all a little bit subjective here. But I think skill set wise, he's always going to be a problem in this division. Like no matter what, I that's why I really enjoyed him making the full move to heavyweight because with that skill set, you're going to give any of these guys an issue. There's not a lot of dominant grapplers at all in this division, and that continues. I agree. I think I would love to see him against Curtis Blades, especially after this fight, right? Like imagining Curtis Blades in there, all things considered, it would have been entirely different, right? I think he's someone that can definitely stop takedowns and force Jelton back with his jab as well. So I actually like Curtis Blades in that fight if we end up there again, from what I've seen, right? But I do like Jelton, man. I think he is young. He's got a lot to figure out, and it's fights like this where you really turn the corner as a prospect, in my opinion. And if you could go out there, look bad, and get a win, in my opinion, you're doing it right. So you're learning lessons, you're getting wins. You can't ask for much more out of a prospect, even though the performance wasn't the most exciting. But with all that being said, man, let's give the recap. I finished the day four wins, five losses, and one draw. Just a terrible outing for me. We will be back stronger next time, I promise. And you went 6-3-1, just dominating in the head to head picks as you typically do. You have regained a 2 point lead in the standings after us being locked up for a couple weeks now. Congratulations. Rest on your laurels because it ain't going to last long, baby.
I'll take it. I've had a rough couple of weeks, so I'll take this win. And while Dynasty wasn't so great for me, I will continue to battle back. It's an unlimited game here, so that's
Mhm.
what I love about the UFC. The fact that we fight every single week, basically. It's I can have one bad week, but I can just come back next week and fill it up and do it all over again.
Great shouts. Moving on to Dynasty. I was able to have the privilege of going 2-0-1 draw after Renat Fakhradinov gets the draw for me, as well as Jailton Almeida. And then, of course, one Kayo Ohio after the trade. Feels amazing. But on your end, you went 1-2. Unfortunate results because obviously two of your fighters were not able to perform on the night. And then you had good old Montserrat, the rabbit herself. So it weighed you down a little bit. Finished the night 1-10. And our standings for Dynasty are 33-16, 2-1 for me, two draws, which is fucking hilarious. And you have a very clean record of 29-21 and one no contest. We're vibing along. 2023 is coming to a close, right? We got 2 months left. So a lot of interesting things that still needs to take place. But very excited nonetheless to see how Dynasty continues to play out. But with all that being said, I know we got some stuff to look forward to, and you really primed me for that. So, Sean, UFC 297. We got some big news,
Mm.
baby. Why don't you tell us what's going on in 297 up in the
Oh,
Great White North?
he's letting me take over. I like this one. All right. Well, and we all found out with the nice little Dana White announcement, some title fights coming our way. And for 297, we end up having two title fights. One for probably the main event, if unless something drastically changes, will be Sean Strickland versus Driscus Du Plessis. And I wanted before we get to, I don't want to do harm on either of these next two fights. But starting with this main event, I want to ask you, how do you feel about that? That's kind of a little bit of a surprise. Everyone thought Hamzat, but Hamzat ended up tearing something in his hand, and he's not going to be ready. And I do still think it was going to be a quick turnaround, even if he were healthy. He just fought on the last card, and they're already talking about him fighting on the next one on 297. So that in January, that's a little bit of a quick turnaround, but I do kind of like this fight because they're finally getting Driscus, the number one contender fight that he was promised all those months ago. So before we continue with the co-main, what do you think about this main event in 297 in Toronto, Canada?
Great shout, man. I can't wait to really dive into the prep on this one because I know how I'm leaning, right? I'm gonna let you guys know. I really like Dricus Duplessis as a prospect. Initially, I didn't, right? Because he has the primitive MMA game that makes me always nervous because I'm like, hey man, the punch isn't gonna go bonk at some point, and it just keeps going bonk, baby. Um, I am worried about
Wow.
this matchup, but I honestly do feel that Sean Strickland defensively, which is funny to even say, but defensively is way too responsible to make this an easy fight. So I really do think this is going to be a sort of drag out long exchanges kind of fight, which makes me excited, right? To see where Dricus Duplessis is at, to see if he has cardio to go a full 5 rounds and have output, to put himself in a position to win rounds. Like, there's a lot of questions that are going to be answered. How does Sean Strickland, the champion, look, right? Does he show up absolutely rattled and looking like he was confronted with his childhood out there, or does he continue to look just on fire behind Eric Nixick's brilliance of 2023? There's a lot of fun storylines in this one, man, which makes it really interesting. But right now, I'm leaning with strong Sean Strickland. I just think he's too defensively responsible to lose to somebody like Dricus, especially when he's known, in my opinion, for being the quasi Nick Diaz type fighter, right? To hey, come run with me and let's see who quits first. I think Sean Strickland wins that battle all day. So give me Sean Strickland as of now. But
Hmm.
excited to look deeper into this one. Can I force you to pick someone before we move on?
Ooh, you know what? This actually, I wanted to ask you before I pick somebody. I wanted to ask you if Sean Strickland, if this fight was made as a before Sean Strickland became champion, before his fight against Adesanya, would you still ride with Sean Strickland, or is it because Sean Strickland, with the shocking, probably one of the biggest upsets of the year? It probably could go down as the biggest upset of the year, along with the Sean O'Malley one. But the fact that he is the champion now, are we looking at Sean Strickland higher than we should? That's really what we got to be asking ourselves. Are we drinking the Kool Aid too, or are we sitting there and we know who Sean Strickland really is, and will he be sent back to reality by Driscus? And so that's the question here. Yeah, that's tough. If I had to give my prediction before I let you answer, um, I don't know. I'm going to say, as of right now, I'm gonna ride with Sean Strickland because of his awesome performance. But I have to see how this all turns out. Will Sean Strickland be the same fighter as hungry? The fact that I don't think he ever thought himself as a champion, and I know he wanted to be, but I don't think anyone else really thought he could be. The fact that now he did, he climbed the top, and he beat a Hall of Famer in Israel Adesanya, made him look embarrassing, to keep it lightly. It's a very one-sided fight, and this was not the fight that I think anyone had on their bingo card going into this year as a title fight and going into 2024. But Duplessis also did the same thing with one of the biggest, another big shocker as well, beating Robert Whitaker. I don't think a lot of us thought that that was a possibility. So I think we all 75% of us thought we were going to see Adesanya versus Whitaker 3 for 297. Obviously not for 290, but like you know what I'm saying, like for this type of fight. But obviously we got option B on both sides of the card. So it's I love it. I love more new fights, more new names, the better. It just brings more and more fans to the game. That fight may not happen ever again between Whitaker and Adesanya 3, but it definitely ignites that entire division to finally see. Listen, this division's open for grabs now. Anyone can be champion, and I think that's how Driscus is looking at it. Like, all right, I'm not fighting Adesanya anymore due to the hype that was there, but that fight could be there down the line. If Duplessis beats Strickland, guaranteed Duplessis fighting Adesanya next, and just with the roles reversed. Like,
Hmm.
they're gonna make that fight eventually. So there's a lot of hype behind this one because of what it can lead to down the line. And if I had to make a guess right now, I think Sean Strickland will come out on top. But hey, who the hell knows? Maybe by January, right before the card, I might be saying Duplessis. So it's very very exciting.
Hey man, you're in rare fucking form today. I just got to say, you
Oh,
took the words right out of my mouth, man. You took the words right out of my mouth. Um, I really do think I'm not overestimating Sean Strickland. I think if they ended up matched up number 5 versus number 4, I think I still pick Sean Strickland. But at the same time, I think the question might be whether or not we're overlooking. right? What the tank
Exactly.
Drickus Duplessis is able to do out there. Who knows? Maybe kissing other grown men on the mouth is the best base for MMA. But what we will soon find
Can't
out.
wait for Sean Strickland to blow that up
Yes.
during the fight previews and the freaking press conferences. He's gonna have picture. I guarantee he wears a T-shirt of Duplessis and his trainer, whoever it is, kissing him on the mouth and just going, "What the hell's going on here?" I guarantee you, he's gonna go crazy with this. He's probably waiting for this press conference.
Hey, Sean, if I needed a corner man, is that something you'd be willing to do? Is that are we on that level?
No.
I love it. We'll leave it at that. Our co-main event for 297 is what? Because I have no idea, Sean. Why don't you let us know?
All right, all right, all right. We got for the co-main event now for the vacant title. Uh, we got Raquel Pennington versus is it Myra? Is it Myra?
Maida, Maida.
I'm not gonna try it.
I need to hear
Myra
it. I need to hear
Bueno
it.
Silva. All right. It's my most American Mexican accent I can give you. Okay.
Did
It's
good.
I think to be honest with you, I don't want to sound like a casual fan here, but I can understand why a lot of fans, when they found out that this was um, for the vacant belt, what the hell was this fight? Like, no one saw this being the co-main event. I don't think anyone cares that this is the co-main event. You know, this is one of those. If it didn't have title implications on it, you could have had this at the bottom of the main card, and no one would have cared. You could have had this in the prelims, and no one would have cared. You know, like it's one of those where it's going to be very weird to see either of these two fighters as champion, whoever it is right now. I do think that one of them can be champion eventually. I'm a little surprised that this is the fight that ends up happening right now. I do understand it though. You know, I know Juliana Pena is hurt still. I don't remember what her injury is right now, but I know she's going to be next. You know, she did come out and say that she is the number one contender already. She doesn't have to fight for it. So whoever wins this fight will just end up fighting Pena anyway. I don't know how excited I am to even see her fight because her what she thinks that mentally it's a little outlandish for me. So
Mm.
I do think it's still a good fight. I do like that we have two title fights for to start 24. But man, I gotta say, this is probably when it comes to value of names, one of the most underwhelming title fight names wise that I think we could ever see.
Hey, still better than Nico Montano versus Roxanne Modafferi. I will say, still better than that. But I agree, man. This fight sucks. But it also is ushering in the truth that we already knew, right? The Brazilians got this fucking division wrapped up. There's no way,
Oh
in my
yeah.
opinion, that Rocky Pennington goes out there and gets a win. But I think that'll be another great underdog story. That sort of late career resurgence for her. Um, yeah, a little tiny tornado gets you a title shot. Who would have thought? Um, Kind of crazy, man. Kind of crazy how we ended up here. Obviously, Myra Bueno Silva coming off of drug suspension too. I would love if she goes full Paulo Costa, right? Just comes out with the secret juice, talks about it all week. That'd be amazing. Like I would love for her to do that and just go full porra on us, right? Full Brazilian. We need that in the UFC. There's a void right now of that UFC Brazilian champ. So would love to see that. But um, yeah, this fight sucks, man. I can't get pumped for it. Can't get pumped for it at all. I could see this fight going to decision too, which makes it even harder for me to be excited about. But yeah, I feel for Juliana Pena. She is chronically injured at this point. I believe she had dealing with another knee injury, which this stage of her career really sucks. And honestly, I will not be surprised if she comes back and just gets blown up again because having that style and not regularly competing, in my opinion, is a recipe for disaster. And I think Myra Buena Silva is might be the new era here at women's bantamweight. But that's it for 297. Next up, got some news about 298 as well. I'll ask you the questions here, brother.
Okay.
Volkanovski going up against Ilya Topuria. Is this too much too soon for Alexander the Great?
No, no, it's not because I still think he reigns supreme in this division, and I said this going into his last fight against Islam that, and I said this about Kamaru Usman as well, where you take a short notice fight, and yes, you have everything to gain in this, but it also, it could backfire so quickly. And I think that's exactly what happened to Volkanovski, where I think we're looking at him completely different right now because of the fact he got head kicked and lost in the first round and didn't even look competitive. I think that would have been a different story, to be honest with you, if it were on a full camp. I think Volkanovski would have been different. I still think um, he would have lost that fight, but I do think it would have never looked like this. So I think the fact that it's not in January and now it's in February, you get a whole extra month. It gives Volk time to, process and get back in. And he so desperately wants to fight. I think he would have probably was asking for 297 and probably wasn't the happiest about getting 298. But I think this is what Volk needed. I think UFC knew that, even if he didn't want to believe it, I think this is, something that Volkanovski needed, the UFC needed to do. Give him the time to recover, give him an extra month, and now he can fight. What is it? 4 months? 4 months of time. I think that's enough for him. And it is a little bit of a bummer because I did expect him to be at UFC 300, but that seems like that's not going to be a thing now. So, but it is still a fantastic main event. Ilya's got so much hype around him. He's proved it. He's dominated everyone he's walked through, and it's going to be a hell of a fight. So, maybe this head kick changed something in Volkanovski mentally and himself, and maybe Ilya will expose that. So who the hell knows? It's so that's what I love about this game is that it could take one fight and all of a sudden the fighter's not the same anymore, and maybe Ilya is the next champion at featherweight, and Volkanovski starts to deteriorate here. But I still think Volk reigns supreme right now if I had to make a guess, and it's going to be a hell of a fight, and I look forward to it.
Whew, yeah, man, this is gonna make that week very difficult, right? We're gonna be really struggling to figure out which way to go. I couldn't agree, man. I couldn't agree with you more. Like I said, rare motherfucking form today, Sean. I love it. Um, I think this is a super competitive fight, which makes it super exciting. And man, if Ilya Topuria and Alexander Volkanovski have a like back and forth, multiple knockdown kind of fight of the century kind of fight, I would love to see just a trilogy between these guys, right? Why not? Why not usher in a new era in this division? Because I'm serious about how convicted I am in Ilya Topuria, despite my unwavering support of Alexander Volkanovski. I think he's got a really tough fight on his hands, man. Um, I tend to lean towards Volkanovski in this one, but I know I'm going to be fiending to get Ilya Topuria on my dynasty team. I can't believe he's not on anyone's team yet. Uh, but
Oh yeah.
super excited to see how that all plays out. But before we wrap up here, we still have a little more news. UFC 299 is going to be headlined by everyone's favorite white boy, Sean O'Malley, getting the rematch that nobody asked for against Marlon
Hell no.
Chito Vera. Shout out to Marlon Vera, just an absolute gangster in this game, and I'm going to be fully rooting for him in this one. But I think this should be
Really?
Sean O'Malley's fight to lose. I mean to win. Excuse me. I think this is a pretty good matchup, all things considered. But I know I'll be rooting for Cheeto for sure.
Wow, I'm a little surprised by that. That you're going to be rooting for Cheeto in this one. Um, Back then, sure, but I think this fight should have never happened. This is all just a hype fight to constantly, for the UFC to continue to build Sean O'Malley. The fact that he is the probably one of the biggest names to come out of the UFC and obviously the Contender Series, and they hype up the same film all the time with him. And the fact that he became champion is, I think, everything the UFC could have ever wanted. Someone with Sean O'Malley to take over the reign and to end Algermain's run. That was like the best thing the UFC could have happened. I think they couldn't even hide their hand. They were so desperate and so excited by that they put it on their YouTube page 24 hours later of the fight, which they've never done ever. It just goes to show how excited they were that Aljamain's run was over and Sean O'Malley's was just beginning. And that's why they make this fight, because they think that, the bantamweight division's got to be one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive division there is. 1 through 15, 1 through 20 are all killers. Anyone can be beaten on any night. But if you had to choose someone within the top 10 or the top 7, you give someone like Cheeto because there's a history there, and that's Sean O'Malley's one loss, which he still thinks is a zero. Obviously, with what happened to his leg and the drop foot, I get it,
The
but
Sugar Show
still an L.
Commission.
Yeah, the Sugar Show Commission, which I do love that that's what he calls it.
Yeah.
But it is an L, and I think he wants to right that wrong. And I do get the hype behind this fight, but Cheeto definitely does not fucking deserve it. Beating Pedro Munoz in a competitive fight that even you thought at the time he lost, and I thought he did just enough to win, and then getting absolutely manhandled and walloped by Corey Sandhagen. I don't see how that works as a all right. Hey, listen, you beat Pedro in a 3-round fight. You squeaked by. Here's a title fight. Great job. While you have so many other bantamweights like Marab, like like Corey Sandhagen and others just sitting there going, "What the fuck do I have to do to get a title fight?" And now they're just sitting there on the back burner. I feel bad. I feel bad for Sandhagen and his Scooby Doo look, that he's got to sit there and sit still for probably another 6 months. But it's just how UFC does this. It's like kind of like a WWE promotion sort of thing, where you're going to get the most pay per views in this. All of these new up and coming 18 to 25-year-old UFC fans that are just starting to watch. This is their Conor McGregor to us, going into when we started. We started a little before Conor, but when Conor came in, he was the golden goose. And now Sean O'Malley is that. They wanted it to be Patty and others, but Patty's not that. Sean O'Malley is that. The fact that he's a champion. So they want to cook this up as long as they possibly can. And if they can get Sean O'Malley more experience and more championship experience, I think Sean O'Malley will win this fight. I think the UFC will make sure or help him as much as they can to win this fight. Not gonna say any more on that, but I do think that it's his fight to lose for sure. And then after that, then everything gets exciting. But UFC 299 will also be a very fun card, but it's also just a perfect prelim to what UFC 300 is about to be, which I think UFC 300 is going to be absolutely crazy of a card.
Whew. I love that. And I think honestly, we were going to dive into some UFC 300 speculation. I think we saved that. I think we have a lot of time to mental masturbate over here about what we would like to see on that card and moving forward. But my question is, because you breezed right over this, is Corey Sandhagen Shaggy or is he Fred? That is the real question
No, no,
here.
no, no. He's definitely Shaggy here. He's got Scooby Doo by his side. He's trying to
Oh
figure out
man.
the mystery. It always comes down to Shaggy and Scooby solving it. They're the guys that everyone laughs at and jokes at, but they're the ones who solve the mystery. So it's Corey's out there figuring it out right now. Scooby snacks, what the hell's going on here, and how he's going to end up, revealing how is it Chito that's been the main villain. And really, when you pull the cape, it's just going to end up being, you pull the mask off, it's just going to be Dana White revealing Dana White. So it's just, and that's who the real villain is here. So I feel
Oh
bad for
man.
Corey because he deserves another shot, but I wonder what happens with him next. I hope he gets a fight to fill in the time because I don't want him to sit still here. He definitely deserves to be a title contender with obviously Marab and Henry Cejudo also fighting soon. I hope that they do that. I know that's rumored. I think it's supposed to happen around 298, 299, but I hope Sandhagen has a fight in there too.
Damn man. Make sure you follow the man, please, Sean. Let the people know where they can find you, because holy hell, you're on fire, man. I can't wait. I'm just thinking about all the thumbnails I could do for this episode now, just because you put this on my lap. So please let the people know where they
I
can
do my
find more
best.
brilliant takes.
Yes, my brilliant takes. They're here all week. You can find me at Shonegron26 on Twitter and bsreports.org, where my awesome takes, along with my other awesome writers, will be on there as well. And if you want to ever get started in the sports world, industry, writing, podcasting, whatever it is, I will help you. Just shoot me, give me a shout, and I will get you started.
Yes, sir. You heard the man. If you're interested, definitely let him know. I'm interested. Trust. I haven't forgotten. But I'm just a terrible human being. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, just remember the call is coming from inside the house. It's not coming from outside. Okay. Make sure you follow me in Negrong MMA on Twitter, TikTok, all that good stuff. But also make sure you're following the brand at OTS Media Co. on all social media platforms, OTS Media on YouTube. We'll catch you guys very soon with our UFC 295 preview with Madison Square Garden in our rearview mirror. We'll catch you guys next time. Peace.